I'm gonna go ahead. Maria, I like when we do that. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order and read the script while we're waiting for the others to jump on. So I'm calling to order the meeting of the Tuesday, January 17th Finance Committee meeting. And here's the script for remotely conducted open meetings. Members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting must use their full name for Zoom access. If full names are not used, people will not be allowed to participate in the discussion. The town reserves the right to remove any member of the public from the meeting who doesn't use a full name or acts inappropriately. As a preliminary matter, this is Denise Cronow, Chair. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative, starting with Joe Grouse.
Here.
Peter Schaefer.
Here.
Chris Glowacki.
Here.
Jeremy Bloomer.
Here.
Stephen Morey.
Here.
Thank you. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Maria Basheva.
Here.
Thank you. Rick Sears.
Here.
Thank you. And anticipated speakers on the agenda, please respond in the affirmative, and that would be Campbell Sutton.
Yes, I'm here.
Thank you, Campbell. Good afternoon. This open meeting of the Finance Committee is being conducted remotely pursuant to Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Finance Committee is convening by video conference on the Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that the meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and to take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials are available on the town's website. Before I go to the first agenda of the item, let me cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I'll introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will ask the members, asking them to provide any comments, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking. And please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. And each vote in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. Okay, there we go. So with that, I will look for an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, Joe.
Aye.
Peter.
Aye.
Jeremy.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Thank you. Denise, aye. I will open up the meeting now for public comment for any agenda item not on our agenda. And I will close the public comments. I have one next item is potential adoption of meeting minutes from December 15th and January 9th. I have one small change to the December 15th meeting minutes. Bear with me while I find it. On page 3, under the Affordable and Year-Round Housing Stabilization Fund, under Joanna's comment, it reads, she thought one issue last time was the availability of the, and there isn't anything after the. So I think it's of the funds, Joanna, should be. Yes, thank you. So putting in that amendment, are there other changes to these minutes, either set? If not, may I have a motion to adopt?
Motion to adopt.
Thank
Second.
you. Thank you. And Joe, roll call.
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you very much. Okay. So next on the agenda is going to be discussion of the, just FYI, folks, Diane Coombs cannot make today, so we are not going to be discussing citizen warrant article number 10, independent HDC administrator, because we always discuss the article when the article sponsor is present. So that's being taken off the agenda. I have invited Diane for January 26th. She has not yet confirmed, otherwise it will be a future meeting if she can't make the 26th. So the next item on the agenda is discussion of citizen warrant article number 9, noise. And Campbell, I will invite you to share with us the reasoning behind your article and what you want to achieve with it.
Thank you for having me tonight. I'm sorry I didn't respond in the affirmative. I didn't know it was like you could put it off. So I just put it on my calendar and showed up. So I apologize for not letting people know ahead of time.
That is my preference, Campbell, that people just are able to make the dates that we pick. Obviously, because it gets to be scheduling a challenge if everything moves around. So,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
if for some reason someone has something significant that they can't rearrange, then obviously we understand that and we try to accommodate it. So
anyway, yes, thank you for hearing my articles.
Actually, Campbell, wait, hold on a second. The only one we're going to talk about tonight is the noise article because the other one goes to planning. We only talk to the plant. We only discuss the planning articles once the planning folks are in our meeting. So today we'll only discuss number 9.
Okay, well, so I developed number 9 in with number 8 in mind. The idea being that in these small, now I wasn't really on the noise thing, but in the end, the idea is to try and maintain noise in the property from which the noise emits. In other words, the idea is not that the noise in your yard comes into my yard as a disturbance. And over the last few years and with my own experience with operating and maintaining pools, I know that pool pumps and especially the heat generating pumps are very loud and they are often on 24 hours, especially if you have a salt chlorinated pool, as you really can't take that 8-hour break and keep your chlorine levels high enough. So I felt that if we could reduce the distance of that noise traveling across property lines, that we could perhaps create a more equitable situation regarding property owners' rights. I heard a lot in the last 2 years when it came to pools, and I'm not trying to get rid of pools, so please don't go there. I heard a lot about cross lot line noise and disturbances, and it just seemed to me that if I have a 10-yard setback and these pool pumps, as from Article 8, are 20 feet from the lot line, that gives the 30 feet. So technically I should be able to sit in the middle of my lot and enjoy reading a book or having a nice conversation without having that interrupted by excessive noise from my neighbors. And it's a small reduction. It's just 10 feet. It's not a reduction in decibels, though I believe it will result in the decibels that you do hear. From another point of view, I myself have tinnitus from excessively loud sounds, such as house alarms. And my neighbor has and that's my neighbor's maybe 60 feet away, and has a in-window air conditioning unit that when I have my windows open at night has a constant buzz to it. Which is an irritant to me personally, and this doesn't address that, but I do think we need to be more cognizant of people's health and hearing issues as we look at increased densification and the cross-border noise that's created. So that's, and again, the idea is to combine that noise with the 20-foot setback for the pool and pool equipment in order to create the 30 feet, the 20-foot in the pool property owners, and then an allowance of 10 feet into the neighboring property setback, but not beyond that point. So that's, I'm trying to create a combination thing where we're all able to be respectful of each other's property use. Because I think we all have equal property rights. I don't think someone that has a pool has greater right to their pool than I have to my solitude. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you, Campbell. And now I'll ask the Finance Committee members for questions. Peter.
Hi, Campbell. The extra 10 feet, is it really going to make a difference?
Oh, I believe it definitely makes a difference. If, as it is now, a property owner could have their pool equipment within the setback of their own property, and with the existing 40-foot allowance for 55 decibels, it is a complete invasion of my property space. And the homeowner has put their equipment as far away from their hearing as possible because they already know what a disturbance it is. And I think also that with the zoning article, or zoning, I think it's zoning article that was passed maybe 2018, whereby you could enclose your pool equipment and air handling equipment within a structure that would not count towards ground cover, I think sort of facilitates people being able to comply with, you know, given their current proximity of where they may have their current equipment. I just know that we are having, and as our lots get subdivided, no one's going in and saying, hey, I want to turn my 4 R10s into a lug 1. You know, they're looking to take their 4 R10s and make them into 8 R5s. So I think we really need to be cognizant of the densification and the ways in which regulation can help people determine and designers determine the correct placement for equipment and the correct type of equipment to purchase. So I do think that it's going to make a significant, I plan on it making a significant difference, let me put it that way.
And one just other thing, do you look at this as being retroactive or just for new construction?
Well, originally I had seen it as for going forward, and that certain things would be grandfathered to the point where they are going to be redone or redesigned. Like if someone buys a property and they want to take out what is there and, you know, put their own mark on the property. But I did think that just like rooster noise, which was an issue some time ago, there is the regulations that were passed require a rooster owner to have a dark box into which to put the rooster. And I think that there wasn't any pushback on that. And I don't think that it's an excessively costly thing.
Thank you.
Other questions? Joe?
Campbell, have you done, or is there any technical research in terms of how much noise pump equipment makes? Whether it actually, exceeds the 55 decibels in the current bylaw? I guess my question is this really a problem?
Yes, it actually is a problem. I can practically guarantee you it's a problem. And
Does anybody
I-
besides you think it's a problem?
I do believe so, because I was able to easily get enough signatures. But I think also it's a matter of equipment manufacturing guidelines and choice. And I think that older equipment, say a pool that I was operating, it's 78,000 gallon pool that I was operating. When I started there 18 years ago or so, it had one speed. I mean, it was a workhorse pump to, every 3 hours it was pumping 78,000 gallons. So it was loud and proud. And I was able to buy a new type of pump that is has multiple speeds that you can set, and was much quieter. However, the boiler that, it was a double boiler that heated the water, that goes on every day. Now, granted, it was along a road, so perhaps only the people walking by would hear, but that made significant noise when it fires up and runs. And while it's not running full-time 24/7, obviously, it comes on, depending on outdoor temperatures, 2 to 3 times an hour or more as fall comes or cooler evenings come. So I don't believe that, and I didn't come up with this because, I thought, wow. Actually, I think if people have been listening during town meetings and other meetings when I was an alternate on the planning board, and I still go to planning board meetings, and I did before I was appointed. This noise complaint comes up often, and I really think it's the responsibility of a town to create the most positive living space for people possible. And I think that when one starts saying, well, how many complaints did you get? It sort of puts the onus on the people that are experiencing the negative to prove the negative versus the people doing the questioning. Why aren't they proving that it's not a negative, and showing what actions that they have taken to reduce the complaints that do come in? Unfortunately, the police department does not keep track in a database specific, in their specifics about what a noise complaint is related to necessarily. So I do have a list of noise complaints for through November 2022. And, but again, they're not able to say, yes, that was specific to pool equipment. But I think most people that are next to it hear it, and those that have it understand why they have placed it so far away from their home. Otherwise, if it didn't make noise, they'd be putting it under their deck.
Thank you, Campbell. Libby? Peter Holla, you need to put your first and last name, please, on the on your Zoom. Thank you. Libby?
Just wanted to mention that, first of all, as a citizen of Nantucket, I agree with almost everything that Campbell said. I have pools in my neighborhood, and there is never a quiet morning because of their pump. Besides that, though, with regard to enforcement, I don't know how this is going to end up, but I heard just some discussion about, would this be going forward? Would people be grandfathered? There is no way the enforcers are going to know if there's a property that's grandfathered or not. That would be really, really difficult. And It is unfortunate that the police department doesn't keep track of that level of detail of noise, but it's all about, you know, how the complaint came in, how it was described. It's not always described well, and they do the best they can with getting in. We're lucky it says noise. So that's it.
So through
Thank-
you, Madam Chair, could I ask Libby if she would be in favor of something that did not create a grandfathered situation, but had provisions for reduction structures or something along those lines?
I
Well,
mean,
Campbell, go ahead, Libby.
I just was gonna say, I'd have to really evaluate that from a town administration point of view. I don't know if that's gonna cause lots of people to have to build structures around equipment and stuff like that. There'd be a real backlash, I think, if that was to have to happen, even though on a personal level, it's really, really annoying.
Thank you.
Thank
Stephen,
you.
Stephen, you had your hand up before. And you're on mute, Stephen.
Yes,
Peter,
thank you.
after Stephen.
Okay,
FinCom
thank you.
first.
Yeah, so my question to Campbell is about the wording in the article. You have that the following criteria must be met. The lot must meet or exceed the minimum lot size for the district and side and rear yard setbacks of 20 feet. So 20 feet seems like that's what you're going after, right? Like it's the separation between the pool or the pool equipment and the nearest lot line. Is that right?
To a degree, it has to be recalled that in the districts that I'm proposing this to be in, they already have a 10-foot setback. So I'm not adding, I'm only adding in 10 feet realistically.
Right.
And many of the pools that are, and this is just the pool, this is not like the surround or whatever you have around it. This is just from edge to edge of the pools. Because very often these pools are set such that the surround is in the setback, which enhances the noise to the neighbors. And I think that is really insulting to neighbors and shows a lack of regard. But so the 20-foot really has to do with helping designers, homeowners, architects, etc., and enforcement agents be able to say, okay, everybody's pool has to fall within these regulations, instead of as a case-by-case basis, taking up staff time and HDC and ZBA time. There should be these parameters set. I'm proposing 20 feet from the lot line. So I'm not proposing 20 feet from the setback line. It's
Right.
20 feet from the lot line, which includes 10 feet. So you're really only talking an extra 10 feet for both the pool and the pool equipment. And yes, the idea being that with that distance in these neighborhoods where the setback is the 10 feet, the added 10 feet would allow for slight noise intrusion by 10 feet into the neighboring property,
Sure.
but not more than that.
Thank you.
Do you see what I mean?
I do, and thank you. The first part, the lot must meet or exceed minimum lot size. If the second section covers the minimum distance between the pool and the neighboring lots, do you need the first part? I mean, you have some lots in here that are 20,000 square feet, even all the way up to 40,000 square feet. If they
Correct.
happen to be slightly undersized, but they meet the separation requirements, what's the problem?
So Stephen, I'm sorry, just to confirm, So we are talking about the noise one, and because of it's concatenated with the zoning one, Stephen, that's why you're asking questions now, because we're waiting for the planning board to tell us what they motioned on the zoning one in the middle of February when we go through all the zoning articles. So
You're right. Okay, we'll just act like you'll strike that from the record and we'll wait. for
we don't have to strike it. It's just that planning gets to make their motion and then we have the discussion as to whether we agree or not. And Campbell did, as a point of information, I haven't been able to watch the planning board meeting yet. Did they make a motion on this article yet?
They did not.
Okay. Okay.
There seemed to be, it wasn't a full board, and there seemed to be some, from at least 2 of the 3 that were present, there seemed to be some interest in, sort of codifying something like the 20 feet, whether that's what they were thinking or not, I don't know. And to Stephen's point, I'm open to some amendments regarding creating special permit opportunities for people in the types of lots that he is speaking of. I didn't want to get into that detail because, the simpler you can keep it, the better, and you can amend over time. But the idea is there, and the wording is basically taken from a pre-existing regulation under the definition for swimming pool residential that relates to swimming pools in the VR district.
Okay. Thank you, Campbell.
So it's basically the same word.
Denise, I have a question.
Who is that speaking?
This is Jeremy
Okay,
Bloomer.
Jeremy, I didn't see you. Yeah, go ahead, Jeremy.
Campbell, I was just curious. Given that technology one day will make these things quieter, number one. Number two, you've already said that certain of these machines can be covered with structures to reduce the sound. And that there's going to be pushback from people when you tell them you have to put it farther away from their property line. Isn't it a better, simpler test just to have a decibel level?
I feel that going with just a decibel level, one, doesn't address the distance, because even if it's a decibel level and I'm hearing it in the middle of my property when I don't have a pool, just like I don't have a cat, and yet I have cats in my backyard. I would have noise in my backyard if I just went with the decibel. I really think it's about a property owner owning their stuff. I, as a neighboring property owner, shouldn't have to own their stuff. Just like their noise. I would love to think that everyone will do the right thing, so you don't really need the regulation. I don't believe that to be the case. I think we've had a couple of instances recently, especially large newspaper types, that show you that's not the case. Like the fellow who let go Captain Beebe's boat. What was that? That is not neighborly. That is not kind. That is not, that's just, but I think we're getting more and more and more of that type of behavior. And so I don't think that we can just leave it to property owners to do the right thing, because I think it would appear in the main,
No,
they
Campbell,
are beginning to do what's best for them.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
I understand all these issues you're bringing up. I was just trying for you to get to an end result, you want to remove as many impediments as possible. And if technology is going to bring these things down, and if covering it can bring the noise level down, maybe if you had a decibel test, you might be able to, avoid a fight over the physical location. And if
Jeremy,
you're saying,
sorry, Jeremy, just to interrupt for a second, please. her article reads, no person shall operate or cause to be operated any air conditioning or air handling equipment, swimming pool or spa pump or exhaust fan in such a manner as to exceed 55 decibels over a 10-minute period of time. So there is a decibel limit in the article. And what the change is, it's measured from a distance of 30 feet or more from the source of the sound or the property line of the premises on which said activity is located anytime, day or night. And it's changing it from 30 feet to 40, or changing it from 40 feet to 30 feet. So there is a decibel
That's the
number in
only-
it.
Correct. And that is an existing noise bylaw by which my
Cor-
adjustment is 30 feet instead of 40.
Campbell, just one observation from me. One of the things that makes me uncomfortable about this is the fact that you are tying it to density. And I know that consistently density is, of course, an issue on Nantucket, but part of your motivation here seems to be around also bringing up the density issue. And therefore, we can get to density by coming in sideways by
That
noise.
actually, excuse me, Denise, that actually has nothing to do with anything.
You've
I'm
brought
not
it up
talking
twice
about
already, Campbell. You've brought it up
Okay.
twice in this meeting already. So I
That's
didn't bring it
fine,
up.
Denise. Thank you for your input, but that is not the angle. I'm not trying to angle at anything. I'm just trying to create level playing fields between homeowners and property owners. That's all. I'm not trying to get at any angles sideways. I'm not
Okay,
very good at
thank you.
sideways.
Thank you. Peter, Peter Holla, you
Yeah.
had some comments?
Thank you very much. I appreciate being heard. I support Article 9. I sent a letter,
Yep.
and I understand it's kind of late in the day that I got it, but it took a lot of focus to understand Article 9 and what is happening and how it affects people. I frankly don't think it is a density issue. I think it is an encroachment issue. If you could see this, if noise were visible, you're putting noise over the property line onto somebody else's property. Of course, noise is not visible, it's just audible. I think what this Article 9 does is it should lower that encroachment, the noise encroachment, by about 50%, should get it down to what one would call sort of a polite conversation level, so that if your sort of porch, outside porch, and I'm on a 20,000 square foot piece of property, so it's not all that dense, but my porch is 20 feet off the property line, and across that line is a air conditioner and a piece of pool equipment, the double trouble, and it's just a constant. It's a constant problem. We've lived through it for 10 or so years, but the house was a spec house, and the person who built the house sort of thinking about this notion of will technology solve the problem? The person who built the house on spec put the least expensive equipment in that they could find, which also happens to be the noisiest equipment. And so I think that having these standards makes a lot of sense, and that the proposal in Article 9 is a very modest change. In terms of grandfathering, it seems to me that putting some barrier, it could be as simple as a fence between the equipment and the property line, if it's a problem, would solve it. I know I've just gone through an entire process to get approval of the HDC and the FinCom to put a fence up on my property to block somebody else's noise. I think adopting Article 9 would be a lessening of encroachments all over the island, would make the island basically a quieter, more tranquil place to live and eliminate friction between neighbors. So I heartily endorse it and hope that you will too.
Thank you, Peter. Further questions from the Finance Committee? Peter Schaefer?
Wouldn't it make more sense just to require everybody to have a sound barrier surrounding their pool equipment and their air conditioning? Just require everybody to have that?
Excuse me, Peter, were you asking me?
I'm asking you and Peter. Yeah.
Oh, I don't see it quite that way. Number one, I don't see the town regulating something like that. I think this is a lot easier to enforce. It's a lot easier to get with your building permit as it would be with, placements of these things would be on the designs that were submitted to the building department, the HDC, the zoning board of appeals. If you're talking about existing conditions, perhaps, though, to Jeremy's point earlier, waiting for technology and then you're requiring people to purchase these things, which is a greater expense, I believe, than what I am proposing. I'm not proposing.
Campbell, I'm talking about a piece of fence. It's already been invented and it's tested and it works. I'm not talking about any sort of new technology.
Well, I think if it's proven to work in a particular situation to get it down to the 55 decibels at 30 feet, then I think that's great. I don't believe that a fence is in all cases going to do that. So I think you need to have a variety of options for meeting the requirement. And just a fence doesn't guarantee, just like a privet doesn't guarantee that it's going to stop the noise to the level that is appropriate.
Thank you.
Joanna?
Just a question, I apologize if you've already answered this. What about the enforceability? And how does that work in a situation like this?
Well,
Campbell, hold on a second. Libby, do you want to weigh in on that first?
The enforceability of what exactly?
Like
The
what
bylaw.
Yeah, what she's proposing.
Well, I think I commented on it already.
Yes, but I like, so take me through the scenario. So somebody isn't complying. What happens?
well,
Somebody
I
else-
think, excuse me, Joanna. So here's sort of the way I envision it happening. They do sell, and I'm sure that certain departments do have decibel meter readers. And I believe that one possibility would be that when the noise complaint were to come in to whomever it comes into, let's say it's the police, then you would have a decibel reader that you could, at 30 feet, which is 10 feet, theoretically 10 feet off along your setback, you could read the noise and the meter would tell you what the noise level was. It's not subjective to, well, I hear and you hear and that sort of thing. It's definitely something that can be registered on a device. And then either it is over the 55 at 30 feet or it's under the 55 at 30 feet. And you could probably use the same idea to figure out whether you needed just a fence or whether you needed an insulated box or what have you. I noticed, I know I do in my line of work, I do go to a lot of homes. And a lot of designers and pool people are beginning to put equipment inside the cabana or the garage or a secondary structure like that, which is very helpful. And personally, I think it's a great idea. But in terms of existing situations, it costs a lot to ask somebody to, pull out their pool equipment and buy new equipment. These are not inexpensive items, whether you're talking, the latest and greatest air conditioner or the latest and greatest pool pump. So I do believe that there's an ability to, without excessive trouble, determine compliance or lack thereof.
Right, I got that part, but so then what happens? So a noise complaint, someone comes and measures it. Do they get a fine?
Then
Yes.
the property owner is responsible for becoming compliant with the regulation, either through a structure around it, or as Peter has applied to the HDC for, which I think is an interesting statement, that he's getting a fence to block his neighbor's noise versus his neighbor getting a fence to block their noise, which in my mind would be the preferable action, would be that the homeowner would resolve the lack of compliance.
Okay. Thank you.
Chris?
So I've heard about it talked a couple of different ways, and I just want to make sure I understand. This is now, we're saying, would be retroactive to any existing equipment and not just about new installations.
Effectively, yes, according
I
to
mean,
the
I
way
heard
that
Libby say
the,
that's the only way you could, that's the only way you could enforce it, but I think it's.
and
probably-
according to the way the article is written, Chris.
Okay,
So unless the article is amended to have a forward-looking statement, it's it's effective upon passage at the 2023 annual town meeting. So that makes any equipment that is louder than 55 dBA over a 10-minute period, 30 feet away, non-compliant.
and was this a follow-up question? The suggestion, I think, then was just made that the police department would be responsible for going around with the decibel meters and making the determination after a complaint?
No, I'm not determining that. It was an example, because most of your noise complaints come into the police department. But the zoning enforcement officer should probably have one, correct? So I don't think that it falls to one person or one outfit. That was just an example of how you could determine whether a situation was compliant or not, based on where the noise complaint was directed.
Peter, Hala, you wanted to say
Yeah,
something?
I've thought a little bit about this, and I think that one of the enforcement issues is just the difficulty of getting a meter 30 feet away and setting it up and doing it in all the perfect conditions. And I think there's an easier way to go about this, which is to have the equipment itself be rated at the location of the equipment. And the air conditioning is not a problem in that event, because the air conditioners are sold with decibel ratings on them. And then you can take the decibel rating, plug it into a calculator and say, okay, what are going to be the decibels if there's no barrier whatsoever between the piece of equipment and a spot 30 feet away? How many decibels would you expect there to be? And you get a simple answer just by knowing the decibel level of the manufacturer's equipment and putting in the calculator. Pool equipment, as I understand it, is not quite so simple, because the pool pump manufacturers don't particularly like this noise equipment business. And so you could actually test the pool equipment at the location of the equipment and then plug that answer into a calculator and say, okay, this is the noise it's going to make 30 feet away. So it'd be easy to measure in that effect. I know in the past, having dealt with the effort to upgrade the noise regulations of the town several years ago, that this is hard to do on the fly, and so there needs to be a simple way to measure this and come up with an answer.
Peter, my observation to what you just said, though, so say something is rated 90 decibels at its source. 30 feet away, there could be trees in between, there could be cars in between, there could be people in between. I mean, it's not really a simple calculation that I would rely on for complete accuracy, right? So I could see where there'd be some challenge to that, whilst attractive because of its simplicity. Also, too, there's also other mitigating factors. So I think you'd have to probably find something that maybe marries both to some extent. Maybe you do both, right? So you do it calculation, and then maybe you can also then still take a measurement if that's the way to go forward. Campbell?
Yes, you know, as you were speaking, thank you. It did strike me that it's currently at 40 feet. So how do they measure it at 40 feet? Like how is the current regulation enforced?
Well, I would offer the same thing that's been said already, which is as and when someone is putting in a complaint about a particular piece of equipment, and not just noise in general, about, you know, people having a rave in their backyard at 8 o'clock in the morning, which I know all of the people on this call probably do. So let's try to keep it down, people.
Give that a try.
Yeah, Campbell, I mean, your raves are legendary, really. So that doesn't need to go in the minutes, by the way. I would assume that somebody's complaining about a piece of equipment. The police probably get the call, most likely more than anybody else. They go out with their noise, or they go out with their device. They stand 40 feet away and they measure it. I'm guessing that's what they must do today, but not being part of the police force, I'm not quite sure. If Libby has any insights.
So maybe it would be helpful if I followed up with them to find out how they would currently do enforcement on that regulation.
That would be helpful. Yes, thank you. Peter?
Okay.
Peter Howell?
Madam Chairman, I was just to say, I think you've come up with a very good idea that you could have alternatives. And for example, what I suggested, which would be a very simplified approach, but may not yield a highly accurate answer, but it puts you in the ballpark. Maybe there would be a presumption. The law has presumptions in many ways. There'd be a presumption that, you know, a compliant device is not making noise 30 feet away that is impermissible. And then if people were not willing to accept that answer, then somebody could go out with a measuring device. So for example, if one were to measure the decibel rating at the equipment, either using the manufacturer's claim or an actual measurement at the equipment, you do the calculation. And if it came out higher, then the presumption would be it's in violation. Or if it came out lower, the presumption would be it's not in violation. And that might solve, you know, 80% of the disputes. And the other 20% might require somebody to go out with a with actual piece of equipment and do the measurement.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Any other, so my takeaway from our discussion is that it would be quite helpful to understand the enforcement component of this before we get to a recommendation as the Finance Committee. That's what I'm surmising from our discussion. Yeah, so with that, Chris?
Denise, do we know anyone that could give us a view on the practicality of sound enclosures for these things? I don't know a lot about pool pumps, so I wouldn't presume to know whether they can all be surrounded by something, whether some are just designed in a way they can't, how hard that is. I mean, are we talking about a, you know, $100 job here to put a box around these things? Or I don't know, I could try to dig up expertise myself from someone on that, but I didn't know if anybody on the board knew someone that might be able to help us figure that out.
Stephen knows all about this. I'm going to make it Stephen's responsibility, but Peter Holla
I
has
know
his
for
hand up.
certain you can't get anything done for $100, so.
Well,
let's-
fair enough.
I know
Peter,
nothing about this, and so it's not to answer that question, but just to make the following suggestion. That at the very least, it's hard to predict how you're all going to come out. But at the very least, perhaps if the enforcement issue becomes overwhelming, it ought to be a prospective situation where Article 9 passes prospectively.
yes.
And that would certainly help future people.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that occurred to me during this discussion, Peter, was that rather than getting too hung up on the enforcement and punishing existing, if you will, and because maybe some people just don't complain about it, or maybe it doesn't bother some people, even if it is higher than 55, is to say all future pool pumps have to meet this requirement. And so as part of the building codes, or however, and again, you can see I don't have to write building codes or anything like that. And Libby's looking at me like, oh, please, Denise. But nonetheless, part of maybe it's something to do with going forward. Hold on a second. My phone just beeped and took you guys all away from my screen. Now you're back. Thank you. Yeah, so that might be another option to try to get to, as giving everybody an opportunity to be a good neighbor, which maybe sometimes we don't have those opportunities available to us. Okay. All right. Thank you for that discussion. Thank you, Campbell. I will email you the next time it'll be on our agenda, probably in a couple weeks, just to make sure we have time to do some research and to find out. But one of the things I can see, Chris, about pool enclosures is that we probably don't want to be adding 100 pool enclosures to the HDC list of things to look at. So it's the law of unintended consequences. Is that what it's called? So there we go. Thank you. Thank you, Campbell. Thank you, Peter,
Yes.
for the constructive
Thank you,
conversation.
everyone, for your
Thank you.
time and thoughts.
Okay, next on the agenda is the date of our next meeting, which is now January 26th. We have committee reports, and then under business, I have last year's assignments for the budget. So we'll do this year's assignments for the budget. So then that way everybody knows what they need to look at between now and the 28th when we do the budget review. So you have enough time. So we have at least 11 days. But let me go through committee reports first and start with Joanna on CRC and CRAC.
We are still meeting with CRC. I think we have 3 more meetings left. Right, and then we'll make our recommendations, but so far so good. And CRAC is moving along.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Jill's not here for the CPC, though I do believe, Libby, you said that they're going to be the capital is going to be in front of the select board tomorrow. That's correct? The capital recommendations in an email to me last week that I looked at quickly. Is it on the agenda for the select board tomorrow?
What is on the agenda is the recommendations from the finance director and I as to how capital projects will be funded.
Okay, thank
It's
you.
funding recommendations for free cash and capital projects.
Okay, thank
But
you.
Ironically, we haven't actually had the Capcom report on the agenda yet. I think that I don't have it right in front of me. That might be next week
Okay,
at the board meeting.
okay, thank you. And just as a general comment to the finance committee, then we should make sure we see it before we do the budget review, because capital is obviously part of the budget review, but it would also be helpful to see it in context of the overall capital picture.
I think, did Stephen Welch send it around? Does anybody remember getting it?
Maybe
Was it
there was
draft?
something. It was a draft. I think it was a draft we got sent, but not the final, I believe.
Yeah, you don't have the final yet, but I don't think it's going to change much.
Okay, thank you. Peter Schaefer, Our Island Home and Senior Center,
No, nothing's happened since the last meeting.
and short-term rental work group.
We haven't had a meeting. We don't have one until the end of the month.
Okay, thank you. Joe, solid waste.
Really nothing. I think I've sat in on one meeting, I think in the last 2 weeks. I can't think of any, any great updates to share with the committee, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, so now we're on to other business. So budget assignments. So what, Jeremy, for your information, what we've done historically is we've assigned 2 people to each topic. Of course, everyone I know reads every budget and has questions about every one. And then 2 people focus in on one particular topic. So then that way, everybody doesn't have to have lots of detail in every single topic. So we go through and then people just basically volunteer and off we go. So the first one up is Police Harbor Master and Emergency Preparedness. And last year it was Chris and Joanna. Joanna still wants to do it. And actually Jeremy's gone. Okay, then Jeremy will get assigned things then.
I'd like to do that one again as well, Denise.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Hold on, let me get a different color pen so I can keep track of my notes here. Thank you. Fire last year was myself and Peter.
I'll do it again.
I will too. There we go. Easy peasy. Water department was Joe and Jill.
I'm happy to
Okay.
do water again.
Okay, I'm sure Jill will too. So that's the beauty of not being here. You get volunteered. Airport was Stephen and George, so it's going to be Stephen and Jeremy.
Great.
You step off, you get volunteered. Okay, good. Thank you. Sewer is actually, Joe, I'm going to ask you not to do sewer because I want you on solid waste, seeing as it makes no sense for you to. Okay,
Yep,
so
fine.
sewer was, ugh, boy. Sewer was Joe and Jill. It's going to be Jill, but who wants to do sewer? Anybody else? Otherwise, I'll assign Jeremy. It's Jeremy. Look at that. I love it when a plan comes together. General fund is all, as always, right? We all take a look at that. DPW was last year, it was Chris and myself. Chris, want to ride again? Perfect, thank you, me too. Solid waste is going to be Joe, and last year it was Joanna and George.
I'm happy to do it again.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Joe. And then Our Island Home was Denise and Joe, but I would volunteer, it should be Denise and Peter
Yeah,
Schaefer. Okay, thank you. Unless, Joe, you're desperate to be on Our Island Home.
No, so just to make sure, so I'm water and solid waste.
Hold, I'll go back through and read them all again. Hold on a second, just to make sure. So, Chris, you are Police, Harbor Master, and Emergency Preparedness. You are General Fund with all of us, and you are DPW. Okay. Jeremy, welcome back. You got volunteered in your absence, and I'll tell you in a minute what you got volunteered for.
Thank you.
Joanna, you are Police, Harbor Master, and Emergency Preparedness. You are Solid Waste,
Yes,
and you are General Fund, like everybody.
yes,
Okay. Peter Schaefer, you're Fire, and you are Our Island Home.
yes,
Okay. Stephen, you are Airport, and that's it. Let's see, Joe, I already told you yours, right?
Who else? Who was on water with me, or am I
Joe,
doing water?
you and Jill are on water.
Oh, okay.
And it's you and Joanna on solid waste.
Great.
And Jeremy, you are airport and sewer. Is that okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess, sure. And
Yeah,
what does
and
that
then-
entail? I'm sorry, I had huge Wi-Fi problems here, so that
Yeah,
fell
so
off.
what we do on the budgets is we'll get the software link from Maria, and then we can click on it, and then we drill down and look at the budget in detail in those sections that we've been assigned to, and then you're then the primary questioners. So you and Joe would be the primary questioners on the sewer. Of course, anyone can ask questions of any of the department heads, but then this way each person on the finance committee has two or three that they look at in depth, and then lead the questioning during the budget review on January 28th. when we go
Okay,
through the
and then
budget.
just so I can do a good job on this, when and where do I get the information to drill down on?
So Maria will send a link out. There's a,
Oh,
I
okay.
forgot the,
All
I
right.
forgot the name of the software, Maria.
It's OpenGov, and I'm gonna send the links tomorrow afternoon. Because I
Okay.
just have a couple more to finalize with Libby.
And when you see them, Jeremy, they're very straightforward. It tells
Got
the
it, got
mission, it tells the, last year's achievements, next year, the look ahead, and then it talks about expenses, personnel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So. Okay, and then, let's see, did I miss out anybody? No, I got everybody. And I'll let Jill know that she's on water and she's on water and general fund. So,
Denise, would
good.
you mind just sending an email out after the meeting at some point and
Yeah.
sort of putting a little table together so we go all, oh, no, we
Happily.
got it. I
Happily.
knew you'd be organized.
I try to be. So, okay, so that's our other business.
Okay.
Any other business from anybody else on the committee?
I had two questions.
Okay, please.
One was, given what we talked about on the bicycle path last week, I got a notice, or I saw a news article today that in Amsterdam, in the last day or two, they have outlawed turbocharged e-bikes for the whole problem, just as a point of, so everyone can be aware of that. Since we were
Thank you,
talking
Jeremy.
about it at length the other day.
Great.
And then last is a question in case anyone knows, leaf blowers are my noise bane to my existence. But I think, aren't we just banning gasoline powered leaf blowers and going to the electric, so we don't need to worry about the noise measurement issue? To question if anyone has.
Commercial use.
Yeah,
only.
for commercial use only. So if your individual neighbor has if an individual neighbor has a gas powered leaf blower that they use themselves, those aren't banned. But for commercial use, yes.
Okay, so we won't need to worry about the police enforcing noise, since they will be just banned
Correct.
on leaf blowers. Okay. Sorry, just a couple of questions there.
Jeremy,
No,
can you
that's
send the
okay.
link around? Do you have an article, the ban of I'm curious about turbocharged electric bike, like what that means.
Yeah, I got to go find it again. Let me go try and dig that up. But since we spent so much time on it the other day,
Okay.
I saw that. I thought it was of our interest.
I can help you.
Appreciate you mentioning it.
I can help you. Turbocharge is the highest rate of the e-bikes, and it means you have a throttle and you can ride without pedaling. And it's also talking about Amsterdam, where there's the most bikes in the world. So it's a whole really not relevant.
So on Thursday, January 26th, for our next meeting, just FYI, we have, I've invited BPAC to come in respect to the bicycle article, as we talked about, to potentially allow us to make a recommendation, because that was the one open point. We have Article 10, which is the HDC administrator. We have Articles 11. I lost track of what 11 is. Somebody probably knows better than me. It's the amend the NP and EDC, Hillary's. And then we have 15, which is the dark skies, and Gail's been patiently on this meeting tonight to see how things go. So there you go. And that's what's on our agenda for the 26th, along with the review of the county budget. So, right, Maria, keeping me on track. I
So
got it
that-
all.
So that will be a long meeting, Denise. with-
Yes, that will plan on we'll finally have one of our 2-hour meetings.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. I don't have confirmation that that the people's that all the people invited are coming. So those are the people invited. Let's see
And-
if they
And that
coming.
meeting it can be an in-person one, right?
can. It's a hybrid. So it's the trailer plus online.
Okay, and the meeting on the 28th, where is that location?
Fully Zoom.
Fully Zoom, okay. Good to know.
Fully virtual.
What?
And then-
No donuts? No coffee and donuts?
I don't even know if the trailer is open on a Saturday, to be honest. So
We couldn't get we couldn't get Fairgrounds Road for Saturday. For
So
Saturday.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know, Maria. It's always, for some reason, it's always been, maybe Libby can help with this. It's
From
always,
the
it's always,
beginning, yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize.
no, I was gonna say from the beginning, it's been presented that it would be Zoom. I don't think that we even weighed in on whether it should be in person or not. Libby, your preference?
My personal preference is Zoom, but we'll do whatever. We have told some departments already that it's on Zoom.
I mean, we could be in person and the departments could show up on Zoom.
It's fine. I'm joking. It's fine to be Zoom.
Okay. I'll just ask my husband to run around to each one of your houses and drop off donuts, except for Jeremy, because I think he's farther away than all the rest of you. So
Well, I am at the
everybody else
moment,
is-
but I'll be in Nantucket on the 26th and the 28th.
everybody else is okay. Well, then maybe you'll be on the donut drop off cycle. So wait till he finds out I just volunteered him. So yeah, good. Okay. With
Okay.
that, thank you, everyone. I wish you a good evening, and we'll see each other again in a week. And I will send out, per Joe's request, I will send out the budget assignments so everybody knows what they're doing. And yeah, thank you very much.
Great.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Maria, thank you as well.
Thank
Always.
you.
Thanks.
You want a
Thanks,
motion to
Libby.
adjourn?
Oh, yeah, I always forget. May I have a motion to adjourn, Chris?
Yes, moved.
Second,
Thank you. Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
aye.
Joanna,
Bye.
Jeremy,
Aye.
Stephen,
All right.
Chris,
Aye, thanks.
to the side. This is like leaving a browser window open. So thanks.